Captain Lisa Martinez stared at the massive alien ships on her screen. 5 enormous vessels hung in space like metal mountains, each one 3 times larger than her own ship. The UN's Discovery was humanity's newest exploration vessel. But next, to these alien ships, it looked like a small fishing boat beside ocean liners. "Captain, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Ben Carter from his position in communications. His voice was steady, but Lisa could hear the nervousness underneath. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and everyone on the bridge felt the weight of history pressing down on them. "Put it through," Lisa ordered, straightening her uniform. The main screen flickered, and suddenly she was looking at something that belonged in a nightmare. The alien creature filled the screen. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in what looked like natural armor made of dark green chitin. Its face was angular and sharp, with 4 eyes that glowed like yellow coals. Most frightening of all were its arms. Instead of hands, each arm ended in curved blades that looked like they could slice through steel. "I am War Prime Kethfor of the Zephyrian Empire." The creature spoke in perfect English, though its voice sounded like grinding metal. "You are the species called humans, are you not?" Lisa took a deep breath. "I am Captain Lisa Martinez of the United Nations Space Command. Welcome to human space. War Prime Kethfor. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your people." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sent chills down Lisa's spine. "Peace? How amusing. Your species is unknown to us, human Martinez. We have traveled far to learn about you. We would be honored to share information about our civilization," Lisa replied carefully. She could see her security chief, Jake Robinson, tense up behind her. Jake was a former Marine, and his hand was already moving toward his weapon. "Your civilization?" Kethfor repeated, leaning forward. "Yes, we have observed your colonies. We have watched your ships. Tell me, human Martinez, what makes your species think it can survive in this galaxy?" The question caught Lisa off guard. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "Look at you," Kethfor said, his 4 eyes scanning her through. The screen. Soft pink skin with no armor. Weak limbs with no natural weapons. How do you fight? How do you protect yourselves? You appear to be made of nothing but weakness. Lisa felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Perhaps we could meet in person to discuss our capabilities. I suggest we arrange a meeting on Neutral Station Beta 7. A meeting?" Kethfor's blade arms clicked together. "Yes, I would like to see these soft humans up close." "Very well. We will meet in 3 of your days." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Captain," Jake Robinson spoke up, his voice tight with anger. "Did that thing just call us soft?" "Easy, Jake," Lisa warned. "We don't know anything about their culture yet. Maybe that's just how they talk." Lieutenant Ben Carter turned from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up more Zephyrian ships. Looks like a full battle fleet. 27 vessels total." Lisa's stomach dropped. 27 warships against their single exploration vessel. If these aliens meant harm, humanity was in serious trouble. 3 days later, Lisa found herself sitting across from War Prime Kethfor in the conference room of Neutral Station, Beta 7. The station was an old trading post that had been abandoned for years, but it was perfectly neutral ground for this historic meeting. Up close, Kethfor was even more intimidating. His natural armor was covered in scars that told stories of countless battles. When he moved, his blade arms caught the light and gleamed like polished metal. 2 other Zephyrians flanked him, equally armored and dangerous looking. "So," Kethfor began without any pleasantries, "we have studied your species more closely since our first conversation. You are even weaker than we first thought." "I wouldn't say weak," Lisa replied carefully. Humans have survived and thrived for thousands of years. On one soft planet with no real predators, Kethver scoffed. The galaxy is not so kind, human. Martinez, we have conquered 17 different species across 43 star systems. All of them were stronger than you. Jake Robinson shifted in his seat, and Lisa could practically feel his anger radiating across the table. She placed a warning hand on his arm. Each species we defeated had natural weapons, Kethver continued, raising his blade arms. The Korathi had acid spines. The Valens had shells that could stop plasma fire. The Nexari could regenerate lost limbs in minutes. All of them fell before Zephyrian might. And what happened to these species? Lisa asked, though she dreaded the answer. Those who served us well became workers in our empire. Those who resisted were eliminated. Kethver's 4 eyes fixed on Lisa with predatory intensity. This is the way of the galaxy, human Martinez. The strong rule. The weak serve or die. You're talking about slavery, Jake burst out, unable to contain himself any longer. You're talking about genocide. Kethver looked at Jake with what might have been amusement. I am talking about reality, soft one. Your species has no claws, no fangs, no armor, no poison. You cannot even regrow lost parts of your bodies. What possible? Use or you accept as servants? Lisa felt the moment slipping away from her. This was supposed to be a diplomatic meeting, but it was turning into something much darker. War Prime Kethver, I think you underestimate humanity. We may not have natural weapons, but we have other strengths. Such as? Kethver challenged. Intelligence. Creativity. The ability to adapt and overcome challenges. Pretty words, Kethver said dismissively. But words do not win battles. Natural weapons win battles. Superior strength wins battles. The Zephyrian Empire has never been defeated because we are born warriors. He leaned forward, his blade arm scraping against the metal table. I will make you an offer, human Martinez. Your outer colonies belong to us now. Surrender them willingly, and we will allow your species to serve the Empire. Resist, and we will take them by force. Either way, you will learn that soft species do not survive long in this galaxy. And if we refuse both options? Lisa asked, quietly, then you will join the species that chose extinction over service. Kethver stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow over the table. You have 30 of your days to decide. Use them wisely, soft ones. The Zephyrian Empire does. Not offer mercy twice. As the aliens left the conference room, Jake turned to Lisa. Captain, we can't seriously be considering surrender. Lisa stared at the door where the Zephyrians had exited. In 30 days, humanity would have to prove it was more than just another soft species waiting to be conquered. But looking at Kethver's natural blade arms and thinking about his fleet of warships, she wondered if they had any chance at all. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really made of. She just hoped it would be enough. The emergency session of the United Nations Space Command had been going on for 6 hours. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at the head of the long table, watching as Earth's military leaders argued back and forth. A holographic display in the center of the room showed the Zephyrian fleet, still waiting at the edge of human space like a pack of wolves. We need to mobilize every ship we have. General Mike Torres slammed his fist on the table. Show them that humans don't back down from a fight. With what? Admiral Sullivan shot back. Our entire fleet has maybe 50 combat vessels. They have over 200 ships, and each one is bigger than our largest battleship. Secretary of Defense Carol Wright leaned forward. What about our nuclear weapons? Our plasma cannons? They've already scanned our technology. Dr. Alan Foster from the Science Division replied grimly. Their shields can handle anything we throw at them. We're looking at weapons that are maybe 50 years ahead of ours. The room fell into frustrated silence. Earth's greatest military minds had no answer for the Zephyrian threat. Finally, a voice spoke up from the far end of the table. What if? We're thinking about this wrong? Everyone turned to look at Captain Lisa Martinez. She had arrived on Earth just 12 hours ago, traveling at maximum speed to report on the alien encounter. Explain, Admiral Sullivan said. Lisa stood up, activating her personal datapad. The Zephyrians think we're weak because we're soft. They judge strength by natural weapons and armor. But what if we show them a different kind of strength? What do you mean? General Torres asked. I mean, we challenge them to prove their point. If they really think humans are weak warriors, let them face one of our warriors in combat. The room erupted in protests. That's suicide, someone shouted. Did you see those blade arms? They're natural killing machines. Lisa held up her hand. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Kethfer is proud. His whole culture is based on warrior honor. If we challenge him to a demonstration of combat skill, his pride won't let him refuse. And when our warrior gets sliced to pieces in 30 seconds? General Torres asked sarcastically. Then at least we die fighting instead of surrendering, Lisa replied. But I don't think that's what will happen. I think we can win. Admiral Sullivan leaned back in her chair. You have someone in mind? Master Sergeant Amy Chun? A few people around the table nodded in recognition. Amy Chun's reputation in military circles was legendary. She had served in 3 different Special Forces units before becoming an instructor at the Advanced Combat Training Center. Chun is good, General Torres admitted, but she's still human. Still soft, as that alien put. That's exactly why she's perfect, Lisa said. Amy has spent her entire career learning to fight enemies that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than her. She studied every form of combat known to humanity. Dr. Foster pulled up Amy's file on his tablet. Says here she has black belts in 6 different martial arts. Expert marksman with 15 different weapon systems. Combat instructor for. Wow, 12 years. There's more, Lisa continued. Amy has a hobby that most people don't know about. She collects and studies historical weapons. Swords, knives, axes, spears. She's spent years learning to fight with blades. Admiral Sullivan raised an eyebrow. Ancient weapons against an alien warrior? Think about it, Lisa said. The Zephyrians respect blade combat. That's their natural fighting style. If Amy beats one of their warriors with human-made blades, it will prove that our softness isn't weakness. It's actually our strength. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Sullivan spoke. It's insane. It's dangerous. It could start a war we can't win. She paused. But it might be our only chance. Get me Sergeant Chun. 2 hours later, Amy Chun stood in the same conference room. She was smaller than most people expected for someone with her reputation. At 5 feet 6 inches tall with a lean build, she looked more like a college professor than Earth's deadliest warrior. But her eyes held a sharpness that made everyone in the room take notice. So let me get this straight, Amy said after Lisa had explained the plan. You want me to fight an 8-foot-tall alien with natural blade arms in front of his entire fleet to prove the humans aren't weak? That's about right. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Amy was quiet for a moment, then smiled. When do we leave? You're willing to do this? General Torres asked in amazement. General, I've spent my whole life studying combat. Every form of fighting that humans have ever developed was created to help us survive against things that were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than us. Bears, lions, other humans with better weapons. Amy's smile grew wider. I've been preparing for this fight my whole life. I just didn't know my opponent would be an alien. Dr. Foster looked concerned. Sergeant Chun, you understand that if you lose, it could mean the end of human independence? And if I don't try, it definitely means the end of human independence, Amy replied. At least this way, we go down fighting. Admiral Sullivan stood up. What do you need? Amy thought for a moment. Time to study everything we know about Zephyrian anatomy and fighting style. And I'll need to select my weapons. Weapons? General. Torres asked. What kind of weapons? The kind humans have been perfecting for thousands of years, Amy said. Steel blades forged by masters, who understood that a human with the right weapon can defeat anything. Over the next 2 weeks, Amy threw herself into preparation. She studied every second of video footage from the alien encounter, analyzing how Kethver moved and how his blade arms functioned. She practiced for hours each day with different weapons, adjusting her fighting style to face an opponent. Unlike anything she had ever fought before, the weapons she chose were works of art. A katana forged by a master swordsmith in Japan, its steel folded 1,000 times. A combat knife designed by military engineers for close-quarters fighting. And finally, a short sword she had commissioned herself, perfectly balanced for her fighting style. Are you scared? Lisa asked her the night before they were scheduled. To return to the neutral station. Amy was in the training room, moving through sword forms with fluid grace. Each movement was perfect, each strike precise. Terrified, she admitted without stopping her practice. But fear is good. Fear keeps you alive. The whole human race is counting on you. Amy finally stopped and turned to face Lisa. No pressure. At all, right? She smiled, but Lisa could see the determination burning in her eyes. Don't worry, Captain. I'm going to show these aliens what humans are really made of. As Amy returned to her practice, Lisa watched the small woman who carried humanity's hopes on her shoulders. In 3 days, the galaxy would learn whether human warriors were as soft as they appeared, or if there was something much more dangerous hidden beneath their fragile-looking exterior. The UN's Discovery docked at Neutral Station Beta 7 exactly 3 weeks after the first meeting. Captain Lisa Martinez felt her heart pounding as she watched the Zephyrian fleet through the viewports. More ships had arrived since their last visit. The aliens were clearly taking this meeting seriously. Amy Chun stood beside her, looking calm despite what lay ahead. She wore simple black combat gear and carried a leather case containing her chosen weapons. Her face showed no fear, only the focused concentration of a professional warrior preparing for battle. Remember, Lisa said quietly, you don't have to do this. We can still try to negotiate. Amy shook her head. They've already made up there. Mine's about us, Captain. The only way to change their thinking is to show them they're wrong. The airlock cycled open, and they stepped onto the neutral station. War Prime Kethver was waiting for them with a dozen other Zephyrian warriors. Up close, Amy could see the differences between them. Some had longer blade arms, others had additional spikes along their armor. All of them looked at her with what she could only describe as amusement. So, Kethver said, his 4 eyes focusing on Amy, this is the human warrior who thinks she can prove your species is not soft? Amy looked up at the 8-foot alien without flinching. I'm Master Sergeant Amy Chun, and I'm here to show you what human warriors can do. Several Zephyrians made that grinding sound that passed for laughter. One of them, with bright red markings on his armor, spoke up. Look at her, War Prime. She is tiny even for a human. Where are her weapons? Where is her armor? Humans don't need natural weapons, Amy replied calmly. We make better ones. This caused more laughter from the aliens. Kethver raised a blade arm for silence. Very well, small human. You wish to prove your species is worthy of respect? Then face our champion in combat. He gestured to the largest Zephyrian in the group. The alien stepped forward, and Amy had to crane her neck to look up at him. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, with massive blade arms that looked like they could cut through steel. Scars covered his natural armor, telling stories of countless victories. "This is Scarthic," Kethvar announced. "He has defeated warriors from 12 different species. His blade arms have carved through the strongest armor in the galaxy." Scarthic looked down at Amy and clicked his blades together dismissively. "This will not even be sport," he rumbled in a voice like grinding stone. "The soft one will break at my first strike." "We'll see," Amy said simply. They moved to the station's main cargo bay, which had been hastily cleared for the combat demonstration. The Zephyrians arranged themselves around the edges of the large room, eager to watch what they expected to be a quick and brutal lesson in superior strength. Lisa stood with Captain Jake Robinson and Dr. Peter Johnson, who had insisted on documenting this historic moment. All 3 humans looked tense, knowing that Amy's defeat could doom their entire species. In the center of the cargo bay, Amy opened her weapon case. She withdrew her 3 chosen blades, the perfectly forged katana, the military combat knife, and her custom short sword. The Zephyrians watched with interest as she tested each weapon's balance. "Impressive craftsmanship," Kethvar admitted grudgingly. "But metal blades against natural weapons that have evolved over millions of years? Your technology cannot improve on nature's design." "We'll find out," Amy replied, securing the shorter blades to her belt and holding the katana in both hands. Scarthic moved to the opposite end of the makeshift arena. His massive blade arms gleamed under the cargo bay lights, looking like organic swords that could slice through anything. He had reach, strength, and natural armor that had protected him through dozens of battles. "The rules are simple," Kethvar announced. "Combat continues until one opponent yields or cannot continue. No restrictions on technique. This is a test of pure warrior skill." Amy bowed formally to her opponent, a gesture of respect that seemed to confuse the watching Zephyrians. Scarthic merely clicked his blades together impatiently. "Begin," Kethvar commanded. Scarthic charged immediately, confident that his size and reach would end the fight quickly. His blade arms swept down toward Amy in a devastating cross-strike that would have cut most opponents in half. But Amy wasn't there anymore. She had moved at the last second, flowing to the side like water around a rock. Scarthic's blades struck. Only empty air, and suddenly Amy was beside him, her katana flashing in a precise arc that found a gap between his armor plates. Blue blood spurted as the steel bit deep. Scarthic roared in surprise and pain, spinning to face this impossible human who had just wounded him. The watching Zephyrians fell silent. Their champion was bleeding. The soft human had actually hurt their greatest warrior. "Impossible," one of them whispered. Scarthic attacked again, this time more carefully. His blade arms moved in complex patterns, designed to catch Amy no matter which way she dodged. But again, she seemed to flow around his attacks like she could predict where they would land. Amy's fighting style was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. She used her smaller size as an advantage, staying inside Scarthic's reach where his longer blade arms couldn't strike effectively. When she did attack, her sword found gaps in his armor with surgical precision. "She's not trying to kill him," Dr. Johnson whispered to Lisa. "Look at her strikes. She's targeting joints and weak points to disable, not to deliver killing blows." Lisa nodded, watching in amazement as Amy demonstrated fighting techniques that had been perfected over thousands of years of human warfare. Every movement was calculated. Every strike had a purpose. Scarthic was getting frustrated. He had never faced an opponent who moved like this human. She seemed to anticipate his attacks before he made them, always staying one step ahead of his blade arms. Then Amy did something that shocked everyone in the room. As Scarthic swung at her, She dropped her katana and drew both of her shorter blades. Now she fought with a weapon in each hand, her style changing completely to match her new weapons. The combat knife moved in short, brutal arcs that found nerve clusters in Scarthic's arms. The short sword worked to keep his blade arms away from vital areas. Amy had become a whirlwind of steel that the massive alien couldn't touch. After 10 minutes of combat, Scarthic was bleeding from a dozen wounds. None were fatal, but each one weakened him further. His movements were slowing, his attacks becoming sloppy. Finally, Amy saw her opening. As Scarthic raised both blade arms for a desperate overhead strike, she moved forward instead of away. Her short sword pinned one of his blade arms against his chest, while her combat knife pressed against his throat. For a moment, the cargo bay was completely silent. Then Scarthic, the undefeated champion of the Zephyrian Empire, spoke the words. That would change everything. I yield. The silence in the cargo bay stretched on for what felt like forever. Amy Chun stood over the massive form of Scarthic, her combat knife still pressed to his throat. The Zephyrian champion's blue blood dripped steadily onto the metal floor, each drop echoing in the stunned quiet. War Prime Kethvor stared at the scene before him, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Around the edges of the makeshift arena, other Zephyrian warriors stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Their greatest champion, undefeated in battle against 12 different species, had surrendered to a small human female. Amy stepped back and offered her hand to Scarthic. The gesture confused the wounded alien, who looked at the extended hand as if it might be another weapon. It means help, Amy explained calmly. In human culture, we help fallen opponents who fought with honor. Scarthic hesitated, then reached out with one massive hand and allowed Amy to help pull him to his feet. The other Zephyrians watched this strange ritual with growing confusion. You fought well, Amy told him, surprising everyone in the room. Your technique is strong, and your courage is unquestionable. Any human warrior would be honored to face you in combat. But you defeated me, Scarthic said, his voice filled with shame. I am supposed to be the strongest, the fastest, the most skilled. You are all of those things, Amy replied. But strength isn't just about size or natural weapons. Real strength comes from understanding your opponent and adapting to overcome them. Kethvor finally found his voice. This cannot be possible. Scarthic has defeated champions from species far stronger than humans. The Korathi had acid spines that could melt armor. The Velans had shells that could stop plasma weapons. How could a soft human defeat what they could not? Amy sheathed her weapons and turned to face the War Prime. You keep using that word, soft, but you don't understand what it really means. She walked closer to Kethvor, showing no fear despite being surrounded by armed aliens. You think soft means weak, but our softness is what makes us strong. Explain, Kethvor demanded, his blade arms twitching with frustration. Amy gestured to Scarthic's natural blade arms. Those are impressive. Weapons. Evolution gave your species exactly what you needed to survive on your world. But there are also limitations. She drew her katana again, holding it up for all the aliens to see. This blade was made by human hands. We studied the properties of steel for thousands of years. We learned to fold metal, to heat it, to shape it, until it became stronger than anything nature could provide. One of the younger Zephyrians spoke up. But it is just metal. Our blade arms are part of us. They grow with us, heal with us. And that's exactly the problem, Amy replied. Your blade arms are what they are. They can't be improved. They can't be changed. But this ... She held up her sword. This can be made sharper, stronger, better balanced. And when it breaks, we make a new one that's even better. Dr. Peter Johnson stepped forward from where he had been watching with the other humans. If I may add something, he said nervously, looking around at the towering aliens. What Sergeant Chun is describing is the key difference between our species. Cathver turned his attention to the scientist. Speak. Your evolution gave you perfect natural weapons, Dr. Johnson explained. You didn't need to adapt because you were already ideally suited for combat. But humans evolved differently. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We were prey animals on a world full of predators. Then how did you survive? Asked the red-marked. Zephyrian, who had mocked Amy earlier. By getting smarter, Amy answered. Every generation of humans had to be more clever than the last, or they died. We learned to make tools. We learned to work together. We learned to think our way out of problems instead of just fighting our way out. She began pacing around the arena, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. You see weakness when you look at human skin, but that soft skin lets us move in ways your armored bodies cannot. You see weakness when you look at our small size, but being small means we're fast, agile, hard to hit. Scarthic touched one of his wounds where Amy's blade had found a gap in his natural armor. You moved like water, he said wonderingly. I could not predict where you would be. Because I was trained by warriors who faced the same problem for thousands of years, Amy replied. How do you fight something bigger and stronger than you? You don't meet force with force. You use speed, intelligence, and technique. She drew her combat knife and demonstrated a series of quick movements, the blade flowing through complex patterns. This fighting style was developed by humans who had to kill armored enemies with nothing but steel and skill. Every technique was tested. In real battles, refined over generations. But surely your weapons are inferior to natural ones, Cathver protested, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Amy smiled and walked over to a metal support beam. With one smooth motion, she struck it with her katana. The blade sliced through the steel like it was butter, leaving a clean cut. Your blade arms are strong, she said. But this steel was folded 1,000 times. It's harder than diamond, sharper than any natural edge. And when human scientists discover better materials, we'll make even better weapons. The Zephyrians stared at the cut beam in silence. Finally, a young warrior near the back spoke up. You mean your weapons can become stronger than natural ones? Not just can, Amy replied. They already are. And they keep getting better. Every human weapon is the result of thousands of years of constant improvement. We never stop learning, never. Stop adapting. Captain Lisa Martinez stepped forward. War Prime Cathver, you asked what makes humans think we can survive in this galaxy. Now you have your answer. We survive because we never stop improving. Cathver looked around at his warriors, seeing the doubt in their eyes for the first time. His entire worldview was crumbling. Natural weapons were supposed to be superior. Evolved traits were supposed to be perfect. But this small human had proven that intelligence and adaptability could overcome millions of years of evolution. Your champion fought with honor, Amy said, breaking the tense silence. But he fought with weapons and techniques that haven't changed in millions of years. I fought with weapons and techniques that have been improving for thousands of years and are still getting better. She looked directly at Cathver. You called us soft, but our softness forced us to become something you never had to be. We became innovators. We became problem solvers. We became warriors who could defeat any enemy, no matter how big or strong or naturally armed. Scarthic, who had been quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. War Prime, I request permission to learn from this human. The request shocked everyone, especially Cathver. Learn from her? Yes, Scarthic said firmly. She has shown me techniques I never imagined. Ways of fighting that could make our warriors even stronger. If humans can improve on nature's weapons, perhaps we can improve on nature's fighting styles. Amy nodded respectfully to the large alien. I would be honored to share what I know, if your war prime permits it. All eyes turned to Kethver, who stood silent for a long moment, his blade arms clicking together as he thought. The galaxy suddenly seemed like a much more complex place than he had believed. War Prime Kethver stood in the center of the cargo bay, his four eyes moving between Amy Chun and his defeated champion. The silence stretched on as he tried to process what had just happened. Everything he believed about strength, about evolution, about the natural order of the galaxy had been challenged by this small human warrior. How? He finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How did you defeat our greatest champion? Amy wiped the blue blood from her combat knife before answering. You want the simple answer or the real answer? Both, Kethver said immediately. Simple. Answer? I'm better trained. Amy secured her knife to her belt. Real answer? My entire species has been forced to get better for millions of years, while yours got comfortable. The red-marked Zephyrian who had mocked Amy earlier stepped forward. Aggressively. Comfortable? We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. We have conquered 17 species. And what did those species teach you? Amy asked, calmly. The question caught the alien off guard. Teach us? Nothing. We defeated them. Exactly. Amy said, you defeated them and learned nothing. Every species that humans have ever fought, we studied. We learned from them. We took their best techniques and made them better. Dr. Peter Johnson moved closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. If I may explain from an evolutionary perspective, he said to Kethver, your species developed perfect natural weapons early in your evolution. This solved your survival problems immediately. Which is good, Kethver said, confused about where this was leading. In the short term, yes, Dr. Johnson agreed. But it also meant you stopped evolving. You stopped adapting. You became what scientists call an evolutionary dead end. Several Zephyrians hissed at the insult, but Kethver held up a blade arm for silence. Continue. Humans had the opposite problem, Dr. Johnson explained. We were weak, slow, had no natural weapons. We should have gone extinct. But instead, we developed something better than claws or armor. What? Asked Skarthik, genuinely curious despite his defeat. Brains, Amy answered, and the ability to learn from everything. She walked over to where her katana lay and picked it up, holding it so the aliens could see the intricate patterns in the steel. This sword is not just a weapon. It's the result of thousands of years of human knowledge. Metallurgy, physics, engineering, combat experience from millions of warriors. It looks like simple metal, one of the younger Zephyrians said. Amy smiled and approached a thick metal door that led to the station's maintenance area. Without warning, she swung the katana in a perfect arc. The blade passed through the door like it was made of paper, leaving two pieces that crashed to the floor. The Zephyrians stared in shock. The door had been made of reinforced steel designed to withstand explosive decompression. Not so simple, Amy said. This steel is folded 10,000 times. It's harder than your natural armor, sharper than your blade arms, and more flexible than both. And this isn't even our best weapon technology. Captain Lisa Martinez stepped forward. War Prime Kethver, your species judges strength by what evolution gave you. But humans learn to improve on evolution itself. Impossible, Kethver said, but his voice lacked conviction. Amy drew her combat knife and held it next to Skarthik's blade arm. Look at these closely. Your blade arm is impressive. It's sharp, it's strong, it heals itself. But it has the same design it had 1,000,000 years ago. She pointed to her knife. This blade was designed last year. It uses molecular bonding techniques that make it sharper than anything in nature. The grip uses materials that give me perfect control even when covered in blood. The balance point is calculated to maximize striking power. But surely there are limits to what you can improve. The red-marked alien protested. Dr. Johnson pulled out a small device from his pocket. This is a molecular analyzer. It can break down matter at the atomic level. We're working on weapons that could disintegrate your armor instantly. The Zephyrians shifted uncomfortably. This was technology beyond their understanding. The point, Amy continued, is that we never stop improving. Every human weapon, every human technique, every human strategy is constantly being refined. We learn from every fight, every defeat, every victory. She walked around the group of aliens, making eye contact with each one. You asked how I defeated. Scarthic, I'll tell you exactly how. I studied footage of Zephyrian movement patterns. I analyzed the weak points in your natural armor. I practiced techniques specifically designed to fight opponents with blade arms. Scarthic touched one of his wounds. You prepared specifically to fight us? I prepared to fight anyone, Amy replied. That's what human warriors do. We don't just learn one way to fight. We learn every way to fight. She demonstrated by smoothly transitioning between different fighting stances. Chinese Kung Fu for fluid movement. Japanese Kendo for precision strikes. Filipino Kale for blade work. Russian Sambo for grappling. Each style developed to solve different combat problems. So many different ways. One young Zephyrian whispered in amazement. Thousands of different ways, Amy corrected. And we're always developing new ones. Human martial arts instructors study videos of every fight, looking for ways to improve. Every technique that works gets shared with all our warriors. Kethver was beginning to understand. You mean your combat knowledge grows with each battle? Exactly, Lisa said. While your warriors fight the same way their ancestors did millions of years ago, our warriors fight with techniques learned from every human who ever lived. Amy sheathed her weapons and faced Kethver directly. You called us soft. But you were looking at the wrong thing. Our bodies might be soft, but our minds are hard as steel. Our weapons might be artificial, but they're better than anything nature made. She gestured to Scarthic. Your champion is brave, skilled, and strong, but he fights with million-year-old instincts and techniques that never change. I fight with weapons and knowledge that improve every single day. Dr. Johnson stepped forward again. War Prime, you've conquered 17 species. But I'll bet they all fought the same way their ancestors did. They relied on natural abilities that couldn't be improved. They did, Kethver admitted slowly. Then you've never fought a species like humans, Amy said. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. We take the best from every enemy and make it our own. The young Zephyrian who had been asking questions raised a tentative hand. Could we learn these techniques? Amy looked at Kethver, waiting for his response. The War Prime stood silent for a long moment, his worldview crumbling and rebuilding itself. You're saying, he finally spoke, that your weakness became your strength. I'm saying, Amy replied, that what you call weakness was never weakness at all. It was potential. Humans never stopped growing, never stopped learning, never stopped becoming more than we were. She smiled at the towering alien. And now you have a choice, War Prime. You can try to destroy us and learn nothing, like you did with those other 17 species. Or you can learn from us and become stronger than you ever imagined possible. The cargo bay fell silent as Kethver considered the most important decision of his life. War Prime Kethver looked around the cargo bay at his warriors. For the first time in his long military career, he saw doubt in their eyes. The certainty that had driven the Zephyrian Empire for centuries was cracking like old armor. You offer to teach us, he said slowly to Amy Chun. But why? We came here to conquer your species. Amy stepped closer to the massive alien, showing no fear. Because that's what humans do. We learn from our enemies, and we help them learn from us. It makes everyone stronger, even those who threaten. You? Especially those who threaten us, Amy replied. A strong ally is better than a defeated enemy. Skarthik, still bleeding from his wounds, spoke up. War Prime, I have fought warriors from many species. None of them offered to help me become stronger after defeating me. This human way. It is strange but honorable. The young Zephyrian, who had been asking questions throughout the demonstration, stepped forward. War Prime, permission to speak freely? Kethfer nodded. What if we're wrong about strength? The young warrior asked. What if the humans are right? And we've been thinking about this backwards? The red-marked Zephyrian, who had mocked Amy earlier, hissed in anger. You would abandon millions of years of Zephyrian tradition for the words of soft aliens? Look around you, the young warrior shot back. Our greatest champion lies defeated by one of these soft aliens. Maybe it's time we listened. Amy watched this exchange with interest. She could see the Zephyrian culture beginning to split between old thinking and new possibilities. Captain Lisa Martinez stepped forward. War Prime Kethfor, I have a proposal. Speak. Instead of conquest, what if we offered alliance? Your species has strength and military discipline. Ours has adaptability and innovation. Together, we could be stronger than either species alone. Kethfer's blade arms clicked together as he considered this. What kind of alliance? Dr. Peter Johnson pulled out his tablet and activated a holographic display. Shared technology, combined military training, mutual defense. Your natural abilities, plus our adaptive techniques, could create the most formidable force the galaxy has ever seen. The hologram showed images of possible joint operations. Zephyrian. Warriors using human-designed weapons. Human soldiers wearing Zephyrian-inspired armor. Mixed units training together. You would share your weapon technology with us? Skarthik asked in amazement. Why wouldn't we? Amy replied. A technique shared is a technique improved. When you learn our methods, you'll probably find ways to make them better. That helps everyone. One of the older Zephyrians, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. This is unprecedented. The Zephyrian Empire has never formed alliances. We conquer or we destroy. And how has that worked out? Lisa asked pointedly. You've conquered. 17 species? But what have you gained? Territory, slaves, resources. But no new knowledge, no new techniques, no growth. Amy nodded. You've been the strongest force in your part of the galaxy for so long that you stopped learning. But the galaxy is big, and there are probably threats out there that neither of our species could face alone. Kethfer was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he had heard and seen. Finally, he turned to his warriors. What do you think? The responses varied. Some of the older warriors looked skeptical, clinging to traditional ways. But many of the younger ones seemed excited by the possibility of learning new techniques. Skarthik settled the debate. War Prime, this human defeated me fairly. More than that, she showed me respect when she could have shown dominance. If her species can teach our warriors to fight as she does, we could become unstoppable. But what about our traditions? The red-marked warrior protested. What about the Empire? Traditions that don't grow become weaknesses, Amy said. Your empire conquered 17 species, but it didn't learn from any of them. That's not strength. That's waste. She looked directly at the protesting warrior. You can keep your traditions and add to them, or you can let them hold you back. Real strength means taking the best from everywhere and making it your own. Kethfer made his decision. Human Martinez, I formally withdraw the ultimatum against your species. Relief flooded through the human delegation, but Kethvar wasn't finished. Furthermore, he continued, I propose a trial alliance, 6 months of joint training and cooperation. If both species benefit, we will make it permanent. Lisa smiled. The United Nations Space Command will be very interested in this proposal. There is one condition, Kethvar said, looking at Amy. This human must come to our training worlds and teach our warriors. I want all of them to learn what she knows. Amy bowed formally. I would be honored, War Prime. 3 months later, Amy Chun stood in a training facility on the Zephyrian homeworld, watching young aliens practice human sword techniques. What had started as a demonstration of combat skill had evolved into the galaxy's first interspecies military academy. The changes had been remarkable. Zephyrian warriors, enhanced with human tactics and human-designed weapons, had become twice as effective as before. Human soldiers, learning Zephyrian discipline and benefiting from alien biotechnology, had reached new levels of capability. Instructor Chun, called Scarthic, who had become her most dedicated student. Show us again how to transition from defensive to offensive stance with the curved blade. Amy smiled as she demonstrated the technique for the 20th time that day. Around her, dozens of alien warriors practiced with weapons that combined the best of both civilizations. Captain Lisa Martinez. Now Admiral Martinez, after her promotion, visited regularly to observe the joint training programs. The alliance had exceeded all expectations, with both species learning and growing stronger together. Any regrets? Lisa asked Amy during one of these visits. Amy watched a group of mixed human Zephyrian teams practicing advanced combat techniques. About what? That fight could have gone badly. You could have lost, and humanity could have been enslaved or destroyed. Amy shook her head. No regrets. That fight was always going to happen, one way or another. The only question was whether we'd fight as enemies or as partners, testing each other's strength. In the months that followed, the human Zephyrian alliance faced its first real test when a new alien threat emerged from the galactic core. The enemy species, called the Devourers, had consumed entire solar systems with technology far beyond anything either humans or Zephyrians possessed alone. But when the Devourers encountered the combined forces of the Alliance, they found something unexpected. Human adaptability and innovation, combined with Zephyrian strength and discipline, created a military force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The battle was fierce, but the Alliance held. Human strategies guided Zephyrian warriors, while alien strength protected human innovators. Together, they turned back an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. Standing on the bridge of the joint command ship, watching the Devourer fleet retreat into deep space, Amy reflected on how far they had all come. The aliens who had once called humans soft now fought beside them as brothers and sisters in arms. So, Admiral Martinez said, joining Amy at the viewport, what's next for the woman who changed the galaxy? Amy smiled, watching human and Zephyrian ships flying in perfect formation. Next, we teach the galaxy that strength isn't about what evolution gives you. It's about what you do with whatever you have. The Alliance had proven that in a galaxy full of natural predators, the most dangerous species of all was the one that never stopped learning, never stopped growing, and never stopped reaching for something better.